Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on Bramble, Pearson and the NTP. Lovely to have you all here with us today. Looking like a very strong turnout so far. I think we've got 126 attendees currently on the call. We had a couple of hundred registered, so hopefully we'll see that creep up. In fact, I think that might be close to a record, Lucy.
128 and creeping up. I think the record, it's about 220, 226. I think we've had before in the past. So nearly. Hopefully throughout the webinar, we'll get some more people come along.
Fingers crossed. It's been a good couple of weeks for record breaking. We're very pleased to celebrate our millionth hour on Bramble just a couple of Fridays ago now. So thank you to any of you on the webinar who have been tutoring already and have been part of that over the last few weeks. We were very excited about it and couldn't have done it without all of you. But by way of some quick introductions, I'm Will. I'm one of the founders of Bramble, and we've been working very closely with Pearson on their NTP offering. Also on the call as presenters, we've got Lucy, Bramble's support coordinator, who you can see on screen, along with some representatives from the Pearson tutoring program. So we've got Michael, who you can also see on screen, and then Melanie and Michelle, who we've got audio from, but no webcam feeds.
Hi, everyone. That's Melanie, by the way.
So the way we're going to structure today's session is in three parts, really. So the first part, we're going to look at what we call the Bramble booking system. This is kind of the admin area where all the tutoring is arranged, where you apply for tutoring, where your schedule sits, all that sort of stuff. The middle part of the session, we'll look at the Bramble session app. This is what you use to actually deliver the tutoring. And then we'll finish with some time at the end for general questions. And between the five of us, we should hopefully be able to answer pretty much any questions you have. You will see on screen now that we've just posted a quick poll to get a sense of how many of you have attended a Bramble webinar previously. Lucy and Scott, our success manager, a very experienced tutor himself, run regular webinars introducing people to Bramble's session app functionality. So I'm aware that a few of you might have attended those before, so we're just keen to get a sense of that, so we spend the right amount of time on that section of the webinar. From looking at the poll so far, it looks like we're about 50-50, so about half of you have attended one of those onboarding webinars, half of you haven't. So as such, we'll probably do a pretty good run through of the session app in that middle section. So just before we do get started, one final note on questions. Lucy will be manning the chat box for any questions you have as we go along. It would be really useful if you could save the questions for the right time in the flow of the webinar. So we're going to start by showing you the booking and admin system. So if you've got questions about that, then post them as I'm walking you through that, and we'll have a brief pause after that section to answer any of those questions. After that, I'm going to walk you through the session app. So if you have any questions about that, save them till then, post them in that section, and we'll answer them at the end of it. And then if you've got any other questions you want answered, we will have some time at the end to address those. So with that all in mind, I think we're pretty much ready to go. So I am going to start sharing my screen. I will probably turn off my webcam whilst I'm doing that. You can see the screen nice and large. Hopefully you can see that okay. Lucy, is that coming through correctly?
Yeah, all coming through all okay.
Excellent. So we're going to start by looking at the registration process. So I imagine most of you will have completed this already, but for completeness, I'll give you a quick run through of that. So we're looking at the tutor experience here. So the point in the flow that we're starting is you've received your invite from Pearson to register with them as a tutor for the Pearson tutoring program, and you're just entering your details in here. So I'll fill this out. And click set up account. Now the next stage, and probably the most important one here, is setting up your tutor profile. So there's a few different parts to this. Start by uploading a nice profile picture from your device. Teachers will see this when you apply for a job, so it's nice for them to be able to put a face to a name. State how many years of teaching experience you have, whether you have any experience teaching students with special educational needs, and write a brief biography here to introduce yourself. The more detail you can put in here, the better, within the 280 character limit. This is your chance to kind of really sell yourself, really sell your experience to the teachers when it comes to them selecting tutors to deliver a block of tutoring. And then you select the subjects and levels that you've been contracted to teach through the tutoring program. So in this case, our mate Alfred Wallace has been contracted to teach biology at Key Stage 4. So he confirms that and then updates his profile accordingly. Now, once you've updated your profile the first time, you'll be taken to your blocks page. And this is really one of the key pages for you as a tutor on the tutoring program. This is where you will apply to deliver tutoring. So the way the blocks page works is you can see here a list of your open blocks on this test account. We've just got the one in here currently. And it tells you some information about the block, how many students are in it, which school it's at, when it's taking place, and the time. Also tells you how many other applicants there are for that block. So what we've tried to do at this high level is give you a quick at a glance ability to say, yeah, I could deliver that block of tutoring. Now you'll only see blocks that you are eligible for. So I won't see the hundreds of maths blocks in the system because I'm registered to teach biology. I'll just see the Key Stage 4 biology blocks. And similarly, if the block requires a tutor who has experience teaching students with special educational needs, and I have not ticked that box, then I won't see those blocks either. So we're doing that check automatically in the background, so you don't have to worry about that. If it looks like you can do that block, you can click on it to see the full detail of the block. And when you click through here, you're going to get notes from the teacher. So these are really useful in giving you a bit more context of the tutoring you're going to be delivering. It will confirm the group size. Typically, you're going to be teaching 3 students at a time, but it will tell you here whether it's 1, 2, or 3 students in the group. And then the important part here is confirming which sessions you are available for. Now, a block is 15 hours of tutoring. The teacher will have input the dates and times of that tutoring. And hopefully, if you're applying for a block, you'll be able to make most of the sessions, but we recognize that isn't always going to be the case. So you can go through here and you can tick one by one the sessions that you're able to make, or you can just tick this box at the top and it will tick them all, and then you can untick the handful that maybe you aren't able to make. And the teacher will be given this information when they're choosing the tutor to deliver the block. So once I've confirmed the dates and times that I am able to make, I simply click apply. Now, the other thing to note here is we are doing some work in the background to try and prevent you double booking yourself. So if we know that you're teaching on Thursdays at 4 p.m. already, then we won't let you tick these boxes. You'll see a little sort of stop sign preventing you from ticking the box. So if you do see that, that's why. So once you mark your availability, simply click apply, and you've then applied for the block. You can click it again to check that you are available for it. And then you need to wait for the teacher to choose a tutor to deliver that block of tutoring. So at this stage, it probably makes sense to show you that teacher's view. So you can hopefully see on here, this is the teacher's view of that same blocks page. You can tell the difference because they've got the option to create blocks of tutoring here. You'll notice that this is the block that you've just applied for. And if the teacher clicks through, they'll be able to see the tutors who have applied for that block of tutoring. And this is where you can see what they've got to go on as they're deciding which tutor to deliver that tutoring. So they've got your profile, and then they've also got your availability. So you remember when I was signing up as Alfred Wallace, I marked that I was unavailable for 2 sessions. I had earlier applied for the block as Charles Darwin and marked that I was unavailable for 4 sessions. So this teacher now decides which tutor they want to deliver the block of tutoring. Typically they'll probably go with the most available tutor. So they click select here, and we just ask the teacher to confirm that block of tutoring, and remind them that they will need to rearrange those sessions you said you're not available for. So in an ideal world, there'll be no sessions here and you're good to go. But we realize that 15 blocks is a lot. So there may be some that you can't make. If that is the case, then once the teacher has confirmed that block of tutoring, they'll be reminded that they need to get in touch with you and just rearrange those 2 sessions. So the actual rearranging itself happens off platform. So the teacher will have access to your email address. They'll drop you an email, or vice versa. If you notice it on your blocks page, you can email the teacher and be proactive about this, and just say to them, hey, I'm not available for those sessions on May 20th and May 27th. Here are some other times that I could make. So once you've agreed those changes with the teacher, then the teacher will come in here and reschedule those blocks. So the teacher will click on this and say, often put the rearrange session at the end of the block of tutoring. So reschedule these accordingly. So coming back to my tutor's view, I can see that block has disappeared from my open blocks page and instead gone on to my confirmed blocks page. So I can click on that and remind myself the details of that, see the dates. In this case, we've rearranged those sessions that I couldn't make and stuck them on the end. So I've been confirmed for that block of tutoring and I'm ready to go. So that's the application process. Next, I'll show you how you actually join a session. But before doing that, Lucy, have there been any questions coming in about that application process?
Yeah, so we've got a few really good questions. A couple of people are asking about the application window, just asking why is the number of days, for example, 27 days, and what does that mean?
Yes, so that's a very good question. And actually, we have just today updated that window to 7 days now. Now, you don't need to put too much stead in that application window as a tutor. That's kind of as much for the teacher. What it means is that the job is available for applications for 7 days from the date that the teacher posts that job. So within the 7 days, the teacher needs to choose a tutor to deliver that tutoring. What we're often seeing is that teachers will choose far faster than that. They'll choose within a day or 2 once they've had enough tutors apply or seen the tutor they want to deliver that tutoring. They will just confirm that.
Sorry, Will. That just leads on to another question, actually, just off the back of that, is how much in advance of the first session do you usually have notice that you have been confirmed for the block?
So that will depend on when the teacher posts the job, when it's due to start, and when they confirm it. Yeah, hopefully by shrinking this application window down a bit, we will actually increase the likelihood that the teacher will confirm that a bit sooner and give you reasonable visibility in advance of that block being confirmed. But it's difficult to put an exact number on it because there's quite a few variables at play.
Great. And then there's a question here. If you're teaching at 3 p.m., can you do a 4 p.m. session?
Yes. So that's one of the beauties of online tutoring, is you can really stack them back to back. So yes, you'll be able to apply for a 4 p.m. session if you are already booked for a 3 p.m. session.
Great. And a question about if you want to edit your tutor profile, how do you do that? Great
question. So if I click the menu icon up here, I'll see my list of menu options. I'll go to account, and then you'll see the tutor profile here. I can simply go in here and add some more details whenever I wish, and then save that. There. So it's very easy to go in and update that if you need to change a picture or change your blurb. You shouldn't really need to change your subject. That should just be the one subject you've been contracted to teach.
Great. And a more general question here that might be really helpful for everyone is, what do you do when a block gets confirmed? When you're confirmed for a block, what's your next step as a tutor? Do you contact the teacher immediately?
Yeah, so I think if there's a couple of sessions you can't make, then it's great to be proactive and get in touch with the teacher and try and rearrange those sessions. If you're able to make them all and you feel there's enough information in the notes, then you may well cover everything else you need in the first session with the teacher. This might be something Michael or Melanie, you might want to comment on this.
Okay, hi, it's Melanie. Yes, I would say as soon as you get that confirmation as a tutor, I would send through the confirmation email that you have, the introductory email to the teacher that's actually listed in the email, so that you can start the conversation going and start finding out exactly when you were going to do that first meeting with the teacher, and obviously find out more about the students. So I'd say as soon as you get that confirmation, have that conversation, because that's really important to start building relationships.
And I'll just step in. This is Michael. I'll just step in and add that in many cases, teachers, because they have booked many sessions that start at the same time, may not be able to attend the first half an hour of a session. So that's another reason to get in contact immediately and ask them when they would like to meet to discuss the pupils. We also recommend that, and Will may be able to demonstrate this, setting up a room just to make sure that your session is completely confidential and that no students will ever be able to view it. So I think learning about rooms and also contacting the teacher ASAP to set up a time to start talking about the pupils and when you're going to be able to do that is a really good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll look at that rooms piece next, actually, unless there's any other questions, Lucy.
We've got quite a lot of questions in, but for the sake of time, we might not be able to get around to all of them. I just thought this was a really good question. Is how long do I wait for a response from the teacher when I choose an application? Because I don't want to confirm one and then get another through that may overlap. So a question about overlapping, I thought it would be good to draw attention to our sort of automatic availability feature.
Yes, so we're doing sort of as much work in the background as possible to try and simplify this for you. So in the situation described there, as Lucy said, what will happen if I accept a job if I've applied for 4 jobs all starting on Thursdays at 4 p.m, that's fine. I've applied for them all. I don't know which ones I am or aren't going to get. At the point that I am confirmed for one of those jobs, we will automatically update your availability for those other 3 jobs. So when the other teachers go in to confirm the tutor for those other jobs, they will see that you are no longer available for those jobs. So you don't have to keep track of that yourself. It's a bit of a nightmare to track it all. So we do that in the background for you.
Great. I'll let you move on then, Will, just for the sake of time. Okay,
so yes, as Michael mentioned there, the next thing for us to talk about is probably your rooms page. So to get to that, again, click the menu and then I head to rooms. So your rooms page isn't something you're going to use loads, but it is very important for the couple of times that you are going to use it. So there are 2 reasons you're going to want to use your rooms page. First of those is just as a test room when you initially sign up to be part of the tutoring program and you want to get more familiar with how Bramble works. So we recommend you set up a test room. Who am I in here as? Which I can use to practice in advance of actually getting any sessions booked. So to do that, I click create a new room, enter a room name, probably just my first name and then test, click next, and that will generate this test room. And sure enough, if I go to rooms now, you can see that I've got that test room available there. So if I want to run this test with someone, friend, family, colleague, just so I can get up to speed with how Bramble works, and I simply click copy link here, and then I can send the link to someone. So I'm actually going to send that to Lucy now, so that when we come to do the session app part of this demo, we'll use this test room. Now, the other time you'll want to create a room is the situation Michael was just describing. And that is for your first kickoff session with a teacher at the start of a block of tutoring. So the first session in the block, we're going to spend about half of that talking to the teacher about the students, about what they're struggling with, about what their aims for this block of tutoring are. And you want that to take place in a separate room because you only want you and the teacher to be part of that conversation. The rooms in your schedule, which we will show you shortly, are the rooms that your students will be accessing as part of the tutoring. So I would recommend creating a new room, maybe naming it after the block number and school or teacher. Doesn't really matter too much. Could name it after yourself. Click next, and it's going to create that room. So again, I'll now have that on my rooms page. Probably good to have some sort of naming scheme there so that you know when you're looking at it what it relates to. So that is the room link that you will use for the first half of the first session, where you're just talking to the teacher about the tutoring you're going to be delivering. So any other questions on rooms or Michael and Menley, anything to add on that side of things?
Yes. So sorry, Michael, were you about to say something?
I was just going to say, no, that's very clear. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions here. One is about the recorded sessions. So could we confirm who can view the recorded sessions? So if I open the Pearson session early to add content and I am the only participant, will I be the only one who can see that recorded session?
Yes. So the way the recorded sessions work is the participants in the session can view that session recording. So in the example just described there, if you want to prepare some content before the session, then when you're loading in there, you'll actually be given the option to join that session without a voice connection. So if you're just preparing some content, then we generally recommend you load in and join without voice. Either way, for your prep session, load the content in and then close the session before your real session starts, because that will make a really clear delineation between your prep session and the real session. Then when you connect to the room for your real session and the students join you, they will only have access to that real session. And similarly, with these first sessions with the teachers, the reason you are setting up these separate rooms is that you and the teacher are going to go into this room, have a conversation, that's going to be recorded. You and the teacher are going to have access to that 30 minutes. You're going to leave that room, you're going to go to a new room to work with the students, and only the students will have access to only that second recording. If instead you and the teacher had joined the block room for the duration, if you'd had 30 minutes first and then the students had joined 30 minutes late, then they would have had access to the whole recording. So that's why we're splitting this into two separate rooms.
And in separating them into two separate rooms, Will, one being the room you've created to discuss for the first 30-minute discussion with the teacher, I've got a few tutors asking, which is probably actually more of a question for our Pearson representatives, is will Pearson honour the 30 minutes of the intro in the room payment-wise?
Short answer is yes.
Great.
Excellent. Short answers are good.
That's a big tick. Great. Yes. Okay, great. Sorry, I'm just scrolling down to see if I can find them all. How do you set the date or time of a room? Is that required?
No, so that's not required. So as I said, this rooms page isn't something you'll use loads. You'll use it when you first sign up to create a test room. You will use it at the start of each block to create the introductory room. But after that, what you're going to use is your schedule page. And this is the schedule that has all the date and time information and the students and all that sort of stuff. So whilst the rooms page is important, it's the schedule page that you actually use more often.
And how did you send the link for the room to someone else?
So again, important to note, you will only do this for your introductory session with the teacher. You do not send room links to students. They should access those from the schedule. But if you do need to send a room link to the teacher, you simply click the options button next to the room, click copy link, and then paste it into an email to that teacher. And if you are having issues with students being registered and you need to send a link directly, then you can do it this way. But we really do encourage students to join from their schedule page in My Bramble, because that means everything's set up properly.
Great. I'm just having a little, there's just a lot to go through, so I'm just I'm just having a little look through. Can you send the email with the room link several days in advance?
Yes.
Yeah, you can send it whenever you want, can you? Okay, great. Let's leave that for now, and then we can answer anything unanswered right at the end.
Cool. So the thing to look at now is that schedule page. So as I said, this is where you'll access most of your sessions, and hopefully looks sort of exactly as you would expect. So it shows me my list of all my upcoming sessions, when they are, which students are part of them. If I need a refresher on the block details, I can click view details here and it opens up that block detail. So on the day of the session itself, I'll come in here, click join session, and that loads me into the room to join the session. So this schedule is populated automatically when a block is confirmed. And I realize I should have said earlier, when a teacher confirms a block, you will receive an email confirmation of that along with it being added to your schedule. So on the Bramble booking side of things, that is most of the things you need to know. So we've looked at setting up a profile, we've looked at applying for a block, and importantly, what to do if you need to reschedule a block. Get in touch with the teacher. Once you're confirmed for a block, reach out to that teacher and start building that relationship. Set up your intro room to share with that teacher for the first session, and then for the second half of that session with the students, you'll launch from your schedule page here, and for each subsequent session you'll join from the schedule page. So Lucy, probably time for a couple more questions on Bramble booking if there are any. Otherwise we will get into a session app demo.
Yes, great. I actually had a really good one. It was actually about, which would probably lead us quite nicely into the session app, is if you're wanting to prepare resources in a room in advance, someone was asking whether you do this in a test room or via that join session link. I know a lot of tutors like to do this, so it would be really good to make that really clear of how they can do that.
Yes, good question. Well, let's start the session app demo with that in mind. So let's fast forward to next Wednesday, and imagine that I'm preparing for my session on Thursday the 1st. So I'm going to come in here on the Wednesday evening and actually click join session as the tutor, and that's going to load me in to the session app. As you load in, we'll test your speakers and your microphone. But actually, as I said earlier, if I'm just prepping some stuff, I don't really need my speaker and microphone. So rather than clicking the animal sound I can hear here, instead, I can choose to join without voice. So that means I load into the session without a voice connection. And that's really useful for two different reasons. One, these prep sessions, and two, one of the nice things about Bramble is that you can use it on multiple devices. So I can connect to this room on my laptop, use that for voice and sharing resources, but I can also use my iPad as a drawing device. So I can connect to this same session with my iPad, join without voice, and then use that iPad to draw stuff on screen, which Lucy will demonstrate later when we get into that side of things. So this is the room that I want to prepare some content in advance. You'll notice that when I first load in, there's a quick tutorial to bring me up to speed with how everything works. Probably be far more succinct than I'm about to be. This page really covers pretty much everything you need to know in terms of how Bramble works, which we'll look at in more detail. And then when I'm done with that, I simply clear the tutorial by clicking this export icon. So now let's imagine I've got some content that I want to load in advance of the session itself. So I'm going to go down here, click this icon, and choose to upload resources from my device. And then I can upload any image or PDF from my computer into the room. So let's say I want to bring in this animal cell diagram, and also some other diagrams. What have we got here? So looking at Aplysia's response to stimulation, and then one more, we'll have a brain for good measure. So I can load this brain in as well. I can even add some text labels, so I can just mark this as an animal cell. Mark this is Aplysia. Mark this is brain. And then to kind of save the content in this room, all I do is close the room. So I'm going to close this down now, and the room remembers its state. So that's me preparing content in the room in advance. So now we're going to fast forward 24 hours to the 1st of April itself. Imagine it's 4 p.m. and I'm about to join this session proper, and I'm simply going to click on the join session link here. I'm going to load into the room again, and this time, this is the real session. I'm obviously going to want to have my voice connection. So I'm going to choose the animal I can hear here. I'm going to allow access to my microphone. This circle in the middle here illuminates when it detects me speaking, so I know my microphone is working correctly. And then I'm going to click Get Started to join the session. And sure enough, those resources that I'd prepared the day before are still in place in the room, ready to go. And then, hopefully promptly at 4 p.m, my students will join the session as well. So Lucy's connected to this. Can you still hear me okay, Lucy? You can hear me, Michael?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I'll carry on. Excellent. I think Lucy might have just lost me. So now we're in the session itself, and what we've tried to do with the session app is really to make it as simple and performant as possible. The model we've used here is sort of a shared piece of paper or a shared stack of papers making up a notebook. So these icons on either side here enable me to move backwards and forwards through the notebook. So if I ever want a fresh page, I simply click the forward icon. And then within the notebook, we've boiled it down to a really simple set of tools that you would use if you were sat next door to each other. So that is the pen tool, which I'm using now. You can see that I've currently got that selected. I think Lucy is in the room with me now as well. You can see she's joined on her iPad. So one of the key things about the pen tool is that the student can draw at the same time as the tutor. So Lucy can start drawing on the screen as I am, and everything that I'm drawing on the screen, she is seeing in real time as I'm drawing it. So there's no delay between me starting to draw something and it appearing on Lucy's screen, which might seem like a weird thing for us to obsess over, but is actually really important to the flow of the session. For example, if I start circling something, Lucy can see that straight away. She doesn't have to wait for me to lift my pen up. So there's no friction. You can really get into the flow of the session. So we can obviously draw out diagrams, circle stuff, add arrows and all the rest. But we've also got a pen tool in here too, text tool, sorry. So if I click through on the icon down here, you'll see it cycling between pen, eraser, and text. So I can use the text tool and type on screen. And again, Lucy can start typing at any point as well. So Lucy, if you want to start typing something out, and once again, you can see as the tutor what the student is typing as they're typing it. We haven't got the sort of 3 dots that we're all used to on a messaging app. I can see what the student is typing as they're typing it, which is really important, because if they're struggling to spell something or changing their mind, it's really useful for me to be able to see that thought process in real time, rather than just seeing the finished article of what they're typing. And on the student side, it's much better for them to be able to follow along as I'm writing, rather than receiving a big block of text that they then got to pass all at once, which leads to that stuttering of the session, which we're really keen to avoid. Next to the pen, we've got the color droplet, which works exactly as you might expect. So I simply click to cycle through the various colors available. We've got 4 colors on here. So one thing that's quite nice to do actually is to ask each student maybe to use a different color, so that you're easily able to see what each other are working on in the session, or you can equally use the different colors to highlight different parts of whatever it is you're working on. The final tool here is the eraser. So if I click once more, you'll see I've then got the ability to start rubbing stuff out. If I've got a bit carried away with that, I can also jump over to the other side here and use undo to undo anything that I've done, or redo too. So we'll often find that people use undo as much as they use the eraser, because it is so fast and so precise. So those are the basic pen tools. Really simple, really fast, really performant. Work very nicely across a range of different devices. We've designed Bramble to make the most of whatever device you and your students have available to you. So we recommend using a laptop or desktop as your primary device. Gives you the best voice connection, easy to upload resources and all the rest. But if you do have access to a tablet, such as an iPad or an Android tablet, and you can connect that to the session as a secondary device, which obviously makes it much easier to draw. Likewise, if you've got a touchscreen laptop, fantastic. You can use that to draw. And then the other thing you can look at, if you're just on a laptop, you can buy these drawing tablets, which you plug into your computer. They're 20 to 50 pounds, and they do make it an awful lot easier to draw on screen. So if you are going to be doing a lot of tutoring, particularly in maths and sciences, and want to be able to draw a bit better, then those drawing tablets are worth looking at as a potential investment. The iPads and touchscreens, we're not recommending that you go out and buy one of those, but if you have them lying around the house, then absolutely use them to enhance your tutoring experience. So with the pen and text tools, you can do quite a lot. We can be drawing out diagrams, typing out blocks of text, drawing graphs, etc. When they really come to life is when you combine them with the ability to share resources. And there's a number of different ways that you can share resources in Bramble. The easiest one to start with is this upload resource button here. So I showed you that earlier when we were preparing resources, but the way that works, you click on the icon, choose from device, it opens your file explorer, and you can load in any image or PDF into the notebook. So I showed you some images earlier, so why don't I show you a PDF here instead? So I've got a maths paper that I can load in, and again, we've prioritized making this really fast. This is I think a 10-page maths paper. It's hit the page less than a second after I've uploaded it. That's the same on the student side, so they're not sat there twiddling their thumbs waiting for something to upload. And then we've got the content in the notebook, and we can add our annotations in line here, or we can jump over to the other side and add our annotations as we wish. And if I've loaded in a portrait image here, then it's going to fill the vertical space and push over to the left. If I'd loaded in a landscape image, then it would have filled the width and pushed up to the top. So if you're using portrait PDFs, you're going to end up with this nice split screen view where you've got kind of content on the left and workings on the right. If you've got landscape resources, say a slideshow that you converted, then that's going to come in landscape. So the other ways that you can share resources is that you can copy and paste any image from the web. So let's say it's a chemistry session I'm teaching. I want to bring in a periodic table, and I didn't have that on my device. And I can come in here, copy image, come into Bramble, use Control-V or Command-V to paste it into the notebook, and we're then able to add our annotations to the periodic table. I can also drag and drop resources from my computer. So if I've got my resources folder open, I can just drag and drop stuff over directly into the notebook. That's very, very quick. And then the final two methods to emphasize are screenshot and snapshot, which are very similar sounding, but quite different things. So the way that screenshots work is that you can take a screenshot of something and paste it into the Bramble notebook. So let's say rather than looking at the whole periodic table, I just wanted to discuss the transition metals. I can come in here and I can use my screenshot tool. Now on a Mac, this is built in, Command Control Shift 4. On Windows, you'll need to use the snipping tool. I should say we've got a help article that explains all of this in detail, along with videos if you're struggling to keep up with everything you're being told currently. But once you've activated whatever tool it is on your device, you'll see you get this crosshair, and that enables me to select exactly what it is I want to share. So I click and drag there, select the section of the resource, come back into Bramble, and again, going to use Command V on my Mac or Control V on a Windows device and paste into the notebook just the area that we want to look at. That can be a really nice way of kind of zooming in on a specific part of a resource. And then the final one to show you is the snapshot functionality. So this is something that you might actually find your students using as much as anything else. And the reason this is really cool is it enables you to take a quick picture of something using your webcam. So if your students have been working on some written work on the desk or anything like that, then they can click their camera icon here and they can see the option to take a snapshot and take a quick picture of that. It's going to take a snapshot, share it into the notebook, and then you can start adding your annotations to that as you wish. So that is all of the ways that you can share resources in Bramble. You know, a good one to start is with the upload resources button here. You can drag and drop very quickly. So prepare the files on a folder on your device and drag and drop them in. You can copy and paste from the web. You can use screenshot to take a picture of a particular part of a resource and load that in. And you can use snapshot to take a picture of something using your webcam. And just one final note on the types of files you can bring into a session. Those are images or PDFs. But what that means is you can bring in pretty much any file type because you can always convert whatever file you're working in to a PDF. So if you've got a Word document you've been working on, then you can convert that to PDF and load it in. If it's PowerPoint, you can convert that to PDF and load it in. So that gives you the ability to bring different types of files in. And I think you will be being provided with a lot of resources anyway, which should really help to enrich that side of your sessions. So we've got a couple of notebook functions to cover, but resource sharing and the pen tools are the bulk of things. So I thought, Lucy, I'd just hand over to you to see if there were any questions about those before I just kind of wrap up on webcam and export.
Yeah, great. I've just tried to curate all the questions we've got in to the most relevant ones. Can we use hyperlinks?
Yes, excellent question. So you can indeed share a link. So let's say I wanted to go to the Wikipedia page on the periodic table. Then I navigate there myself. I grab the URL and copy it. I then come back to Bramble, and again, I'm going to use paste on my keyboard, Command V or Control V, to share that link. So that link will then be shared with the students, and they can click on that, and it will open in another tab. If it's content that you're wanting to bring into the page and works well as an image, then your best bet is probably still just a screenshot, because then you're able to work on it in the notebook together rather than going off to a separate tab.
And is that a good way to share videos as well, Will?
Yes,
if you want
absolutely.
to play a video in the room.
Yeah.
Great. So that's also how you share videos, is you just paste a link to the video and your student can watch it in a separate tab. Got a few people saying that often throughout the session, the toolbar is grayed out. So I was just wondering why that is.
Yes, so that is to do with a student using the text tool. So when they're using the text tool, you can't change page because then the text ends up on a different page. So to represent that, we grey out the tools on the dock. And Lucy, do you want to demonstrate that? If you start typing some text now, just so that everyone can see what happens on my screen.
Yeah, sure.
So you can see that Lucy's typing here and my doc's gone grey, but the important thing to note is it hasn't disabled the tool I've currently got selected. So I was still able to use the pen tool as Lucy was typing there.
Would you still be, if you had the text selected, Will, would you still be able to use the text tool alongside me?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if you want to start typing something out, Lucy. So you can see we're both able to type at the same time.
Great. Some tutors are asking if there's any way, because obviously the students have the exact same access to everything as you, ability to turn pages, write, etc. Is there any way of disabling that if you have some troublesome students causing trouble?
Yeah, it's a good question. And kind of the approach we've taken here is we feel that interactivity is really important for these students. We really want to engage them in their learning. We don't want them sat there sort of passively watching a screen, and we kind of give them that respect by giving them access to the same set of tools that you as a tutor are having. And in a one-to-one and small group setting, hopefully you shouldn't encounter too many behavioral problems that cause that to be an issue. If you are having problems of that ilk, then do speak to the teacher, do speak to your lead tutor, and try and address those behavior issues kind of outside of what's happening in the app.
And this is a really, really good question, which I get asked about a lot, is what is the best way of preparing sessions? Because sometimes when I upload work in the room beforehand, and then in the live session itself, I find when I add resources, it keeps adding them to the end of the notebook. So I have to keep flicking forwards to find those resources. So what's a good way to get around this?
Yeah, so there's a few different options here, and my preferred approach, and the one that I would recommend, is actually that you just prepare your resources on your device before the session. So you have your folder on your computer of the resources you want to use in that session, and then you bring them in a sort of just-in-time manner. So as we get to the part in the session where I want to look at the animal cell, I load that animal cell in. We've worked really hard to make that resource sharing as quickly as possible to support that on the fly loading of resources. And the benefit of that is it gives you the flexibility to adapt to how the session unfolds. So rather than putting a resource on every single page and finding out that on page 4 you actually needed to spend some more time talking about the resource on the previous page, you can just unfurl the session as it goes. If you do want to prepare content in advance, then you can load into a session in advance and load some stuff in as I showed you earlier. But my general recommendation would be prepare the resources on your device and then just bring them in on the fly.
Okay, brilliant. And just another one just to finish off actually, is if you want to show a PowerPoint presentation, I know we sort of touched on this earlier, but what would be the best way of doing that on Bramble?
Yeah, so again, that's really easy. You simply export that PowerPoint as a PDF, and then you can load it into the notebook. So to show you how that works, I can load in this slide deck here. And it actually works really nicely because you've got that same sort of landscape page format. So this is a presentation. I simply exported it as a PDF, and then it loads into the notebook, and we can start adding our annotations on top of it. And actually, back in the days of conferences and presentations and all the rest, this is how I used to give all of my presentations. I'd load content into the notebook and then share that screen, and then be able to circle stuff and add annotations as I go, because I think it makes for a much richer presentation. So yeah, that's how you bring in PowerPoint resources.
Brilliant. I'll let you move on to webcam because I've got a few questions about that.
Excellent. So as you may well have noticed, we have our webcam icon here. And when I click that, the first thing it does is pop up this little preview window, so I can check my hair's looking all right before we activate webcam proper. And you'll see I've got two options here. I've got take snapshot, which is what I showed you earlier, which enables me to take a picture of whatever I'm holding up to my webcam. And then I can also choose to use webcam, which takes us into webcam mode. So you won't see this because it's just me in the session with a webcam feed, but my students would also appear on the screen here. So they'd appear next to me. If there's 4 of us, we'd have a nice grid of 4 faces. So we've taken a modal approach here, which means you're in webcam mode or you're in notebook mode. And what we found is this works really nicely because it means the start of the session, you can use webcam and say hi, and kind of establish that relationship. And then for the bulk of the session, you're just focused totally on the notebook itself, rather than worrying about what's going on behind you or anything like that. So we use webcam start and end to say hi and bye. And if I need to use it in the middle, I simply click and activate it. It takes everyone into webcam mode. But you'll probably spend the majority of your time working in the notebook rather than using webcam. Last couple of icons to cover here. We've got the info panel. If I click on that, it just pops up and tells me who else is in the session with me, and what page we're on, when it started, how long we've been in here. And then finally, this icon here is actually a really important one. So this is export, which actually does two things. It resets this notebook, so clears all the content out of the notebook, and saves a PDF copy of those notes to my sessions in my Bramble account, and also emailed to me and the students. So we recommend you use this at the end of every session. So I click export here. It's going to clear this notebook, everything we've worked on, and send it to myself and the students connected to the session, and then also attach it to this session in our library of saved sessions. So recommend you use that at the end of every session. So that's a pretty thorough run through of the session app. Again, there are videos and help articles covering this if you need a refresher at all. They're much quicker than I've been. Michael, Melanie, anything to add on any of the session app side of things that I've shown, or anything else discussed before we get into questions more generally?
I was just going to say thanks very much, Will. That was a really comprehensive move through a lot of the questions that we are normally asked. It was really good to actually see this. Thank you.
No worries. Glad it was helpful. So just before we do get into the final Q&A, thought it would be worth showing you that sessions page that I was alluding to. So if I go in here, I can show you an example of what a sessions page looks like. So this is where you'll be able to see all of your previous sessions that have taken place. This is an example taken from a real library. I've obviously swapped out the email addresses, and in fact, we released an update today that replaces these email addresses with names. So you'll just see your name and the students' names rather than any email addresses here. And what this session library is a really brilliant record of all the tutoring you've done. So you can see we've got sort of vanilla information like how long this session was, when it took place, and who was present in it. But we're also doing some really cool stuff in terms of analyzing that session itself. So you can see here we're automatically tagging the session by subject and coloring it accordingly. We're generating this synopsis according to what was discussed in the session. So this is totally automatic based on what you work on in the session. And that synopsis just provides a brilliant at-a-glance reference of what any session was about. We were kind of quite pleasantly surprised when we implemented it, just how good the granularity was. You can not only see the difference between a biology session here and a math session here, you can see the difference between a human biology session and a plant biology session over here. That's great for you as a tutor to remember where you left off. It's great for a student to remember what they've covered. And it's really cool for the teachers in the NTP because it provides them with an at-a-glance yet super comprehensive view of what their students have been working on. So they're able to come into their sessions page at any time and see the sessions for all of their students and just get a really good sense of what you've been working on with those students. And writing a report to that level of detail take an awful lot of time. So it's a really nice way of conveying that information. We've also got some other icons here. Play will take you to a playback of that session recording. So that launches into the full recording of the session. You've also seen next to that the PDF icon. So if I click on that, then what that does is open up the PDF copy of the notes that I was alluding to earlier. And one icon that's actually missing from this screenshot, but is super important, is the session info and feedback icon. So this is a little eye that you'll be able to see on this page, and you click on that and it takes you through to your feedback page. So this is where you will leave feedback on the session, rating the students' confidence, understanding, and engagement, as well as providing any comments on the session. So this is something that you want to do after every session on the platform. And what I'll actually do is just pull up the help article on this, so I can show you a kind of visual version of what this looks like. So let me just load this in here. So again, got a very nice video here, which Lucy has put together. Pretty much everything I've shown you today. There is a lovely sort of couple of minute video explaining it, so you can always go and revisit it. And then the way the ratings work, you can see here a view of a sessions page where we need a load of ratings to be added. You can either click the rating required or the I here, and then that will take you through to a page that asks you to provide engagement, understanding, and confidence ratings for each of the students in that session, as well as allowing space for any further comments on the session. So this is something you do after every session, again, to help keep the teachers in the loop of how those sessions have been going. So the final thing to show you is probably the search functionality. So these session cards here and the recordings are obviously a brilliant revision resource, but not that many students are going to sit through an hour-long session recording. And what they really want to be able to do is jump to the exact point that you covered, whatever it is they're struggling with. So to enable that, we've built some really powerful search functionality, which lets you search all of your sessions for any keywords discussed in those sessions. So if I again bring over just another screen here, I can show you how that works. So a student and yourself can come in here and search across spoken words, typed text, and shared resources in your session. So again, this is a real student's library, the one we were just looking at. And you can see if I type in MIT, they've talked about mitosis, mitochondria. They were being taught biology, as you'd have seen from the previous page. And against each of those, we tell them how many times they've discussed those concepts with their tutor. But rather than just returning 91 results for mitosis, we try and guide that search and help them narrow it down. So we say to them, hey, here are the things you've discussed in the same context as mitosis. Again, sort of things you might expect: mitosis and meiosis, mitosis in cells, mitosis in chromosomes, mitosis and division. And they can choose which it is they want to look at. So let's say it's mitosis and meiosis. Yeah, they've made that age-old error of muddling up exactly which is which I make just about every time I demo this. So they type in mitosis, meiosis, and it returns the 41 times that they discussed those concepts together across 15 different sessions with their tutors. We rank these according to the most common, the most frequent occurrence of that in a session. So in this case, turned up 9 times in this session. I've got the synopsis here for a bit of context on the session. And then I've also got, for every mention of mitosis and meiosis, the sentence and timestamp that they were mentioned. So I can zoom in on exactly what it was I was looking for. So if it was indeed the difference between mitosis and meiosis, I can click on here, what is mitosis, what is meiosis? That's going to load me in to the session at that exact point, 3 minutes 56. I can hear them talking in the background saying, what is mitosis, what is meiosis? And sure enough, if I start scrubbing through the session, I can see that that's exactly what they were working on. And this really is a phenomenal revision resource for the student. They can come back to their tutoring again and again. It might be that they're wanting to refresh their memory at the end of the week. They might be stuck on a bit of homework. They might be panicking the night before an exam. To be able to go back to the content that you taught them, search it, and go from being stuck to having an answer to that question in a matter of seconds is really quite transformational in the context of tutoring. So something that we're very excited about. So that's the sessions page and the library, which completes the demo. Really, we've looked at Bramble Booking, we've looked at the session app, we've looked at sessions in the library. That's everything. So I'll probably now come back to the webinar tab and turn off my screen share and turn the camera back on. The questions. I think Lucy might have lost my sound. Michael and Melanie, can you hear me okay?
I've got you. I've got you.
Okay, great.
Don't worry, I was just trying to type to someone. I can't do two things at once. Apparently.
No worries.
We had some questions about feedback, actually, quite a lot of questions about feedback, which will be really helpful to get Michael, Melanie, and Michelle's take on. Let me just find that question, actually. It's how long can you leave it before you leave feedback for a session? So how quickly do you need to leave the feedback?
Rule on that. Basically, we do understand from schools that they really like to look at the feedback you've left. So I would say sooner rather than later. Don't leave it more than a couple of days at most. Also, it's easiest sometimes to do it when it's fresh in your mind, but there isn't a fixed rule on it.
Can I just add to that? There isn't a fixed rule on it, but some schools do actually go in as soon as the sessions are finished. And they're very keen to actually see how the students have performed. So I would, if possible, do it at the end of the session, simply because it stops you then getting an email saying, where's the actual feedback for that session? Because I've had to email around tutors and actually remind them to leave the feedback, because some schools are very hot on it.
Yeah, I think there was just the concern with a lot of pre-tests that they can't, they don't know the results of the pre-test till a while after they've been scanned by the school or something like that.
The schools will understand that a pre-test has actually been done, so they wouldn't expect you to put feedback for that on that session.
Okay, brilliant. I hope that reassures a lot of people. Are students asked for feedback, and do they have a sheet like the tutors do to complete, or is it just the teacher?
Yeah, so we do give the students opportunity to leave feedback as well. I think it's really useful for them, again, to have that voice, and for you as the tutor to get a sense of how the students' ratings of their confidence understanding and how engaging the session were and how that tallies to yours. So yeah, we asked them a sort of mirror set of questions. So we asked the student, how confident are you feeling? How well did you understand that session? And how engaging did you find that session?
Great, and a total different question to feedback, but I think it's worth covering, as it does happen sometimes, is what do tutors do if schools cannot participate in a tutoring session because of technical firewall issues?
This is probably one for us, I think, isn't it, Lucy? So if this is the first session, we do find the schools haven't done their practice. We have a way of registering no-shows. So if you go to a session and no one else shows up, you stay there for 15 minutes. You will be paid for that session. You need to then log that session with the Pearson tutoring help desk so that they can record it, because it won't be recorded automatically as a session you should be paid for because no student showed up. So you log that with the Pearson tutoring portal, and that is recorded and added to your timesheet. You should then contact the school to see if they're going to be able to resolve those problems before the next session, and do not attend another session until the school contacts you to say, or you've heard from school to say, we're up and running now, so please go to the next session. You should also you'll let the help portal know, and we will also try to get in touch with the school to help them resolve their firewall issues. If it is a firewall issue, please also alert the Pearson help desk to that when you contact them about the no-show, because we're trying to follow up on all the firewall issues. Bramble's got a brilliant set of help information about how to get through firewall issues, and we've had some very obscure firewalls issues that Lucy has been working with us to resolve, and we've been successful, I think, on every single one of them so far. But we do need to know that it's an issue so we can reach out to the school.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, if you just let Pearson know or let me know that you're running into any difficulties, we can try and sort it as quickly as possible. Great. How much longer do we have for questions, Will? I'm just aware of how many there are.
Well, you know, there's nothing else to do in the world at the moment, so I'm happy to hang on for a little bit longer and answer a few more questions. But I realise people might have to dash off. So let's try and if we sort of do another 10 minutes, if you pull out sort of the most salient questions there, and we'll try and cover those off. And if there's any outstanding, then we'll tackle those via email maybe. Great.
There's still quite a few people asking about feedback. So what I've done is I've just posted the help page link to our Q Ratings Explained, and that shows you everything you need to know about how you can view feedback. You might not be able to see a lot of the students' feedback, probably because they haven't left any yet. So if that's where it will appear on the same view as soon as you click on that ratings required button. It will appear there. And so I've popped that in for you to have a look at. Oh, this is an interesting question, which I do get asked sometimes actually. Are there any copyright issues when using resources from the web?
So you're able to bring resources in to use in your sessions, and I think you're also being provided with quite a lot of resources. Michael, Melanie, you're probably better positioned on that one than I am.
Yeah, so we have, as you know, you've all got a link to a SharePoint site that has all of the resources that are broken up comprehensively into 15 session blocks and include pre-tests and post-tests. One thing that many people have commented on is that the pre-tests are not screen friendly. They weren't designed for that originally. They were designed to be printed out in schools and administered by schools, but we know that that's not happening. We're currently getting all of the pre-test designed to be in the same screen ratios as all the rest of the tutorial content.
There's actually a further question about pre-test and protest and post-test, Michael, I wonder if you can help with. Sue has asked, how do we supervise the students during sessions when they are doing a pre-test or a post-test?
I'm going to, if Melanie's still on this call, I'm also going to drag her in on this. I'll just say that our original plan was that the second session, the first session is with the kids, is effectively meet and greet. The second session with the kids is going over the pre-test. Now, originally, we had planned that those pre-tests would be administered by the school. We're finding schools aren't really doing that. So, in fact, it may be something that you have to agree with the tutor how they want the pre-test handled. If they want it done during a session, in fact, well, one thing I will say is you'll need to find, we've had a number of recommendations, and actually I think if you look at our help portal, there are recommendations, or ask your lead tutor for recommendations. We came up with a specific plan that they'll be able to supply to you of ways that you could interact with the students, and there are a variety of ways that we've discussed, but you will be able to share it on screen. In terms of getting pupils to complete it, if they're doing it, if you put it up on screen and they're answering, then obviously they'll all be able to see each other's answers in real time. However, will tell you about some amazing new functionality that will be released fairly soon that would also make it much easier to administer the tests live with the 3 students. So Will, I'm going to pass you to talk about Bird's Eye, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as Michael says, if you do find yourself in a situation where you're needing to administer that test in the session itself, then obviously you want each of the students to be able to work on that test separately. So the Bird's Eye functionality Michael alludes to is something that we've been working on to provide the students with their own independent work area in the session. So as the name suggests, the way this works is essentially each student has a quadrant on the page that they're working in, and as far as that student is concerned, that is all they can see. You, as the tutor, have a bird's eye view of what they're working on. So you're able to see that Lucy's stuck on the first part of the question, and Michael's finished it already, and provide feedback to them in real time. You can add annotations. So we designed this in response. We're doing a lot of tutor interviews and hearing that one of the things they struggled with online group tutoring was giving students this space for independent work. So very excited to have implemented that and to have that coming soon. So keep your eyes and ears peeled, and we'll be communicating that as and when it's ready to go live.
Great. I just had another question going back to feedback, but actually it's a very important question. Is if there's been a no-show or a teacher has been present in the session, how do I leave feedback, or should I leave feedback for those sessions?
I think for a no-show, it's important to comment on the session. You have one general comment area for the feedback that no one showed, and it's a good way to have that recorded permanently. So it's also something when we're trying to validate no-shows, we can look at the session itself and see that. We'll also see that no students show. Another issue we have about feedback, and I think this might be connected, Lucy, is schools are giving links to the session so that students are joining either under an email that isn't registered, or they're joining under the teacher's link. In that case, you won't be able to leave feedback under each student. You can only leave proper feedback for students that are registered. So in that case, again, you need to use the general comment and say 3 people joined. Lucy was really, really keen on her work and made a lot of progress. We struggled to keep Will engaged, but you can only do that in that one comments area.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. And just a few people have been writing that sometimes they've been having issues with echoing in sessions. So I think the best advice for this, which I know is so dependent on what school's equipment is and what their setup is. I mean, ideally, you'd want every student joining from a separate room if possible. Understand that a lot of the time that's not possible. If they are joining from the same room, ideally they need to be as far away from each other as possible, so their headset mics aren't picking each other up. And that's another point, is make sure they're using headsets or headphones of some kind, because that will get rid of any echo and background noise.
Yeah, I think that's the key point. First and foremost is headphones and microphone. That's going to have the biggest impact. If you're hearing an echo of yourself, then that is someone just using a speaker, and the audio is coming out of the speaker and going back into the microphone. So schools should be using headphones and microphones so that is minimized, and that should minimize feedback and all the rest more than any of those spacing bits and pieces, which we recognize are more difficult to implement, and especially for you as the tutor further removed.
Great, absolutely. We've got quite a few questions about Pearson resources, Michael. I don't know if it's best if we give them the link to the support portal for them to ask more questions about this. What do you think?
I think that would be the best way, because first of all, I'm not the expert in the resources. We have editors who've worked on those. It would probably be better so that if we have them coming through the portal, we can feed them to the editors in question. We are constantly updating those resources. We still maintain them, but comments about the usability of them would be really great to have going via the portal.
Great. And someone's asking about Key Stage 3. So why is it that we can only see Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 4 and not Key Stage 3 as an option?
That one I can actually easily answer. It's mandated by the government. So the National Tutoring Program is specifically for years 10, 11, and year 6. Now, we will do some tutoring outside of that. A lot of schools, particularly year 5, are now asking that we would like to look at tutoring our year 5s because the year 6s are leaving and we want to focus on the year 5s. You need to negotiate. We're allowing schools to do that, but I would say don't take a job that's year 5 unless you think you'll be able to adapt the resources, or you'll cope with the existing resources and be able to teach with them, or you have your own year 5 resources. But it's not mandated by the Educational Endowment Fund, but they are, as it were, encouraging us not to turn away year 5s, but it wasn't set up for that.
Okay, brilliant. Great. Well, there's a lot of questions there, but I feel like this is probably a good time to wrap up.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll let people get on with their evenings. Just before you go, we've just got a quick poll asking how you've found today's session. I'll give Lucy a second to tee that up. So if you wouldn't mind just holding on a couple of minutes more. So you should see that question's just popped up. Would really appreciate you taking a quick second or two to fill that out, so we get a sense of how we've done. As I said, great to see so many of you on here. Everything we've talked about has got a really good help article attached to it, either on the Bramble Help Center, which you can access from your My Bramble account by going to menu and going to help, or on the Pearson support portal, which is also linked out from that help page too. So anything you've seen that you want to refresh your memory on, do head there as a first port of call. Otherwise, I think we're good to wrap up and say thank you to all of those who have attended, and thank you, Michael, Melanie, and Michelle for your support on this.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, everyone. Hope you found it useful.
Have a lovely evening all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.